Just the one reader is so precious. Somebody connecting with our book is so precious. And I think it's so important to never forget that start and have never lose that appreciation for the reader, because the reader is really what it's about. We have a message we want to share. We have a world we want to share, and it's for them. And if they're connecting with it, that is literally what we've been trying to do. Some people do write for the money, and I don't connect with that in the least. It's, to me, I don't see a point in writing if you don't have a message, but if somebody touches the message all the way, it's completely there. Welcome to Literary Deep Dives and Discussions with me, A.L. Liskey, the author of the Unseen Operative series. I have joined with me today author Mary Kay, also known as East Coast Pinoy. Welcome, Mary.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For all my viewers out there, Mary Kay was on my season of Who Wrote It, and she has written a beautiful, I'm not sure that I would call it a romance. What genre would you call it?
I could say like women's fiction, focus on a little bit romance and redemption and women empowerment mostly.
I do find it to very much fit that genre more than romance. I don't know why romance was in my head. But before we dive into the book, let's get to know you just a little bit. Tell us a bit about what brought you to become an author.
She said you can have it written on Wattpad. So I started writing on Wattpad. The first story that I wrote, it's a romance story as well, but it's like a short story. And during that time, like everybody seemed to be starting watching K-dramas.
Mm.
I think that's the time that during the COVID, like people started subscribing to different apps, like different apps where you can watch movies or you can watch K-dramas. And I said, let me try watching one. And then the first that I watched was The Goblin, like with Gong Yu. And then I started coming up with this idea that wait, there's like this story that's forming on my mind that like there's this guy who can be like a real actor and he's like went to Boston because I'm in Boston. So it's like and then he met someone there, a Filipina who was hiding in Boston and that they didn't know that the Filipina doesn't know that he's an actor in real life, something like that. So I started writing it in Wattpad. I called it My Dreamland Opa because during that time, Korean novella was starting to get famous and everybody wants to say Opa, like how they call the actors in Korea. Started writing it and I think I was able to finish writing it like in 3 months, like straight. Like it just kept coming in, so I kept writing it. But I know I just wrote it because I wanna get it out of my head. And I wanna like be one of them. I wanna let me start with this story. It was inspired by a story of someone I know personally. So I wrote the first chapter and 1 a.m. my phone kept with the notification, it doesn't stop. It keeps on coming with notification. And then I look at the reads because in Wattpad, you know exactly how many people are reading it. And it says 3,000 something reads in a matter of like, I think few hours that I posted the first chapter. And I was like, what is going on? Why are people like reading this like this? And then it was like a big pressure because in Wattpad, they can comment anything and people start, where is the next chapter? Like we need chapter now. And I did not plan to write religiously every chapter every day or whatever. And I was like, what's happening? Why are they asking for my next chapter? I did not even plan to write a second chapter at all. I was just like thinking, I got this idea. I write the first chapter. And it inspired me to finish the book. It was also pressuring on my part because you were so inspired. The adrenaline is so high and then you see so many comments waiting for your next chapter. I started like not sleeping normally. I find myself getting so much ideas like early morning, late at night, on my phone. It was so easy that when you have your phone, you can just write. And sometimes I'm on a family event. And once I sat on the corner, I didn't realize that I'm not anymore part of the event and I'm just like keep writing about it. And like what are you doing? Sometimes my relatives are like asking, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just writing something because it was a secret that I was writing the story, because I never meant for people to know that I'm writing because it wasn't really my intention to like to make it known or to have people who she's writing because I feel like I'm an imposter because I didn't have the writing background, the educational background to be a writer. I cannot really claim that I'm really an author or a writer in the real sense of the word, because it's like there's so many out there who have so many good background in writing and experiences in writing. Whenever I see people buying my book up to now, I think I should accept that it's not about your background in writing, it's whether you were able to write a story that connects with other people or
Hmm.
something that inspires them. I think it kept me going, and I was able to come up with 11 stories in Wattpad. I still have them there. I just unpublished some of the stories that I plan to publish myself, and the rest are still there, available for everyone. It feels good that you know that you touch someone's life with your
Hmm.
story, and it inspires me all the time. But
Do you do you plan
yeah,
to publish any of those 11 books?
right now, I think I want to write a memoir. A few months ago, I started attending workshops in writing a memoir because every time I write something, there is one part of my life that I always end up making part of one of my characters' life in my stories. And lately, the one that I'm writing, but I abandoned for a few, almost a year now because I don't get any inspiration. I think the reason why I cannot find the inspiration to continue writing what I started was because I cannot find the connection with the character that I have created in that current story, because it's like me making her be this character. In the end, I feel like I should be the one telling the story of my own personal, like as me, I would give justice if I write this story that it's me sharing about. It's not a character that I made up or a
Right.
character that I'm having a hard time creating to be able to come up like me, to come out like me. So
Hmm.
I was able to attend 2 workshops already, and I really am liking it. And I think I would be able to like share more of my story if I write it in a memoir way. I'm the one really talking about it. But because before I never entertained it because I thought memoir is only for famous people. Actor or actress, you're a politician. I thought that's the only time that you should write about it. But I learned so much attending the workshops. So I think I'll be writing one. If not anytime soon, but for sure I'm gonna write.
I love that. I've often thought about writing a memoir. I technically have written 1.5 memoirs. The first nonfiction book that I ever wrote that was rejected from traditional publishers was a little bit of a reflection on my life. It was called Beyond Our Limits, and it was kind of an inspirational take on theology, religious practices while living with chronic illness and whatnot. And after writing that, I mean, I was kind of the flip. I kept looking at myself and saying, I don't really want to write about myself. I don't really feel like I'm connecting that much anymore with this topic. And so I found myself switching to fiction. And I don't put myself in my characters, but I do put my circumstances and my observations of other actual people into my characters. And that for me has been more of a connection. But I like what you're saying about, when we don't feel the connection, we have to step away and work where we do feel connected. I think it's perfectly reasonable to stop writing a book and to go where you need to be writing. I just recently stopped writing my. I feel bad saying this because a lot of authors were looking forward to this, but I was going to publish a book called How to Fail Indie Book Publishing to help other authors with successful publishing, and I'm not going to publish that this year, probably not next year because the connection's gone. It's not that I don't care, it's just
You
not where I'm
just
connecting.
And I think you shouldn't expect your readers to connect if you
Yeah.
yourself cannot connect to what you're writing. Asking someone to read something that you did not love writing at all. And I
Yeah.
don't how can you tell your readers to please read my book, or like you can connect to this story, blah blah blah, when you know that you have a hard time connecting while you were writing it. And
Exactly.
or maybe there's something else for me that I can, explore more. I'm not really abandoning it forever because who knows, because I'm already on half of the story. It's actually, it could already be ending book one and I could already have the second book for that story. I think for now, I don't really get the connection and the inspiration to continue writing it. Lately, I've been having this idea that maybe the reason what I'm going to write about, if ever I ended up writing my memoir, would be my pregnancy journey. Because before I had my daughter, I had several miscarriages. It was really not a good journey in terms of marriage life and being a mother. I realized that maybe this is coming back to me because when I had those experiences, I never really grieved. I never get the chance to really grieve for the angels that I lost. The story that I might write if I might write my own memoir. I realized that human nature normally we want to forget the bad experiences, right? In our life, who wants to remember when you had a bad experience? But when I realized that I never really grieved for them, I feel like writing about my journey on pregnancy would be a way for me to always remember them, because even though it's a sad experience, I don't want to forget them. So I think
Yeah.
that's my main reason why I want to write about them, because even though it was a painful and sad experience, I don't want to forget about those angels in heaven that I've had in my life. I want to always have this story that I can always read back and always make me remember them. Grieving at the same time healing. I think that's realization that I've had lately.
Love that. That is so precious. You're absolutely right. We do, as humans, we look at bad experiences as being these only terrible things, and we try to walk away from them. And others like to write about them so much that they only focus on the negative. But the way that I've seen bad experiences in my life is beauty can come from those ashes. They can turn into something absolutely incredible because they have meaning. In my life, I grew up in an abusive household. I struggled with an eating disorder. I struggle with infertility and a chronic illness. And those can all be seen as very bad experiences by so many. And I usually do get people who hear me say this, that they say, I'm sorry you've been through that. I'm sorry you're going through that. I'm not sorry, because I've taken those times and I've grown from them, and those experiences, those people that I've met, the person that I was and the person that I am now, has become something beautiful and incredible. And for you, having had those beautiful children that even though you didn't get to raise them, they were a part of you for a while, and bringing this memory to them, that makes something that is technically a bad experience something absolutely beautiful and treasured. And there are so many women out there that need a memoir like that, that need to know that these angels are still a part of you. They belong to you. You can't see them, but they're still there.
And
So I love that you're doing that.
if we lose someone, like we know we want to forget the sad memory, right? But
Hmm.
I think we just want to forget the sad memory, but we don't want to forget the person.
Yes, absolutely. And I think mourning has a beauty in that as well. Some of my characters that I have written are based off of people that recently passed away in my life, and being able to continue with them keeps that part of them with me and that memory with me. I do love that. They're still people, whether we can see them or not, whether they're still here or not. This is a precious part of our lives to carry on. So thank you for sharing that. You've talked a lot about lots of ups and downs with being an author. Pressure, my goodness, I just recorded a podcast about pressure, but pressure has such a connotation of negativity in our society. And there's the positive pressure where people are saying, I want your book, I want your writing, you have an idea that I absolutely love. And then there are those gut punching pressures that just absolutely cripple us and bring us down and make us question our worth. But I love that you have this attitude of, I was not a creative writer and I'm writing, and this expectation of understanding of where you are versus where you thought you had to be. I feel like that kind of carried you through it. In the end, your realization is correct. You don't need to have a degree or experience with creative writing to write. That's the beauty of that journey, is discovering that you are a writer, you are an author because you write a book, because you keep writing, because you've not just because you've published, but because you are pursuing this path of living every day. And I'm just like laughing here while you're talking about your family gatherings and writing, because I do that too, and they always think that I'm texting someone.
Sometimes when you're writing something and people start reading it, you read negative comments. I
Mm-hmm.
always like try to make it a joke to myself as well. I cannot please everybody, you know. And this
Yes.
is one or two negative comments compared to the number of units I sold. You know, like sometimes you have to tell yourself that you sold more than what negative comments you got. My story before it's too late. The setting was in Boston, and then the main character Avery moved to Florida. And during that time, in that when she's in Florida, she was already pregnant there. Then she met someone. The redemption part of her story is that she realized that she doesn't have to stay with her ex to please the family or to fit in the community. I debated, will I make her stay with her ex, or will I make her find someone that she deserves better? I was supposed to make her end with her ex, But in Wattpad, people started giving me comments. If you make her end go back to her ex, it's telling me you're gonna end your life as an author. Those comments, like,
Hmm.
and but then I started looking at it. I think it's time for me to write a character that gets the best redemption and not really being dependent to the guy that she thought it's her world, you know. I ended up writing the ending as her redemption story, but there's a part where she was impregnated by her ex and she met this guy who she got married to, and the guy accepted the baby as his. But since they're in Florida, to make the plot twist, I made it part of the story that since she's not married with her ex, it says there that there's a law in Florida before blah 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 that if you're not married to the father of your child and you got married to another, that automatically the child gets the last name of the guy that you married. And because it's just a story, I just made up the story. It's not like I said that this is the law in Florida or whatever. To make the story more exciting, I made it in the story a part that there's a law in Florida that states automatically the guy that she's marrying to gets to give the last name to the child. I mean, the ex did not marry her. She did not get anything from the ex. So because
Hmm.
she cheated on her. And then people started like, there was this one review in Goodreads that says like, well, this is what you get when the writer wrote who belong in a different country wrote something about United States, blah blah blah. It was a racist
Oh my
comment.
gosh, that's
I got.
awful.
I think for me that was a racist comment.
That,
Like it
yeah,
was
absolutely.
story. I just made up the story, inspired by somebody's story that I know, and just added some of my experiences in the story. But I did not say that that's the law. I did not say it.
Mm,
How can somebody write a review that when he or she doesn't even know where I am? I may have a pen name that says East Coast Pinay, but it doesn't mean that I'm not in the United States, And
exactly. Like that is just completely uncalled for.
if the person who writes a story does not belong here and writes about the United States, something like that, I did not get sleep for like a week or two thinking about it. Why did this person write this very racist comment? And he even wrote this as a review in Goodreads. I made peace with it and I said, well, I cannot please everybody. But I don't get offended by comments, but that one really came to me a racist comment, like,
Absolutely. That's a
yeah.
painful comment, and
I
it's a
even
sad
like
one that people would go out of their way just to do that. It's to me that's such a morally wrong thing.
whoever wrote that review. I don't even know if it's here in the US or
Yeah, when it comes to reviews in general, at the end of the day, words are words. I'm with you that if somebody's going to give feedback, please just give helpful feedback, like be specific instead of just putting out some bigoted opinion that makes very little sense or is less than helpful for anybody. I mean, a review is literally supposed to be reviewing the book, not just giving an opinion per se. To me, when I look at reviews, because I've had a handful of reviews that I look at and I can tell they have not read my book at all. They might have maybe read the first 3 chapters, but they haven't read the book. To me, it is just words. They come and go. We write words, and words can have power. The only power that words have is the power that we give them to us. If we choose to let them affect us, then they do. Because these people that are writing them on the other side of the world, they don't get to see what it does to us. I don't honestly know that very many reviewers actually even think about whether or not what they write has an impact on people. Once it's out there online, they just step away and live their own lives. And here we are, just either to take it, to deal with it, to appreciate it or not. It's completely out of their hands. The only one choosing to hurt is us when that person has absolutely no control over us. And so that's just my 25 cents on reviews. You're absolutely right that the reviews never equal the amount of units sold. I wish that even 25% of the books I sold would leave a review. You know your book, you know how it's supposed to be, and you're absolutely right. It is fiction, so
I
you
just
can
find
make up whatever laws you want.
it, well, I stopped reading my reviews after that.
That's wise. I only check it out when I know the person that's reviewed. A couple author friends will read my book and they'll leave a review, and I like to read their comments because I know them and their opinion matters to me. But the rest, it's like,
And sometimes they're like, you just want to feel good about yourself that you wrote something that connected to someone. So you go back to your reviews. So this is a nice review, it really makes your day. It's normal because we want to be accepted. We know that we're not selling other people who becomes bestseller in a week or so. Connected reader is $1 million. That's how I feel about it. I'm
Course.
so thankful to everyone who keeps reading my book on Wattpad, on buying my book on Amazon.
That is definitely the more important focus is maybe we're not bestsellers, maybe we don't send millions of books all over every single day, but just the one reader is so precious. Somebody connecting with our book is so precious. And I think it's so important to never forget that start and have never lose that appreciation for the reader because the reader is really what it's about. We have a message we want to share. We have a world we want to share and it's for them. And if they're connecting with it, that is literally what we've been trying to do. Some people do write for the money, and I don't connect with that in the least. It's, to me, I don't see a point in writing if you don't have a message, but if somebody touches the message all the way, it's completely there. So, your characters, you're quite connected to your characters. So I'm curious, because you talked about putting a lot of yourself into those characters, how has your culture and your family impacted your writing?
So much. I think if I'm gonna rate it at 100%, maybe 85% is inspired and affected by how I was brought up and how the culture in the Philippines, because it's a conservative in culture in terms of married life,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how you deal with people in the community, your social life. Like even up to now, I mean, I find it helpful because it gives me strength and it gives me an identity in terms of me dealing with other people. And then in my writing, I'm able to describe and connect with a character. I always have this inspiration that if I create a character, is either he's a bad me or he's good me, like my good version or my bad version. So I can
Mm-hmm.
connect with my character so much. And sometimes if there's any change on the path that I'm supposed to take in writing about my character, it's influenced by the comments that I get because sometimes there are people close to me that they start reading a few chapters of what I write. And I wish most of the time that if I ask someone to read my first few chapters, they tell me the truth. You don't want to be praised all the time because you're already there to praise yourself. Sometimes when I give my first few chapters to someone that I know, what are your thoughts? I love it. I really, really like it. And you did very good, but you cannot say that that's not what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
You wanted a real blow by blow information so you can improve your character more and bring your story to a deeper sense of having connection with the right reader. And in the Philippines, most of my writing is I focus on women empowerment. And in the Philippines, you're most of the time is you're disrespectful if you try to negate what the society got used to in
Mm-hmm.
terms of how you live as a woman. And I think it's liberating that you write a character that you think is still a good person, even though he or she doesn't fit into the mold. Because in the Philippines, if you answer back to the elderly, you're
Mm-hmm.
so respectful because I make it a point that some ways my character are fierce, not disrespectfully fierce, but fierce in the sense of the word that they can stand on their own without minding the possibility that they're not fitted in the mold of the society. And I think I like writing characters like that because I grew up and raised in a culture that especially for women, it's your voice should stay on a certain spot. Your voice is okay to be heard, but it's not all the time that you're going to be listened to. But lately, it's good because it's not how the culture is being looked at right now. But it gave me so much perspective that you can be fierce without being disrespectful. I try to make a character that can stand on their own without thinking that they're being too bold or out of the society's norms. I think it inspires me. You don't have to be in a box for you to be accepted by society. Most of the characters, especially women, it's women in most television shows or movies and books that we get to know or read are not anymore a Cinderella waiting for a prince. We started coming out with fierce characters who can be princess, but at the same time, they can act like heroes on their own way. And I'm so inspired to write somebody who's so quiet at the beginning of the story. She cannot stand on her own. But the sad experiences or challenges in life and the journey that life has took her into made her into somebody who's blossomed into a fierce woman who can decide and choose whichever she thinks is best for her, not minding what other people will say. Because I think my personality is like that. I grew up in that kind of culture that you always have to think what other people will say.
As you're talking, I'm remembering I used to live in the Philippines. I lived in Luwag, I lived in Batak, and then I lived up in Cagayan. And I had so many kabahays, I guess English for that, house companions that I lived with. I had so many kabahays that they were so pushed to be a certain weight. They had to be this skinny, this many inches. They had to be so white. They couldn't say certain things. They couldn't do certain things. And of course, being American, I didn't understand the culture at first. I would go in and I would do things and they would get very, very upset. And they'd say, you cannot do that. You can't say that. You can't eat that. You can't be like that. You can't refuse this. You have to, anytime you're invited, you have to do this and you have to do that. It took me about a year to understand the culture more, and it's very hard to articulate to Americans how different the culture is, because the American mind immediately believes, oh, it's all terrible or it's all good, and we try to understand it from our American point of view. It's nothing like anything we imagine. There is a mold, like you're saying, and all the community is involved. It's a collectivist culture, whereas America is an individualistic culture. And so when you do something, the whole family is involved. The whole neighborhood knows. Everybody knows. They all see you, and they see you more if you're white.
Whenever a foreigner or tourist comes, he or she is the star of the neighborhood.
Yeah, but I felt so bad for my companions because I didn't want to be beautiful, and they all thought that that was beautiful, but I hated the way that they looked at themselves, and they would look in the mirror and they'd say, I'm so ugly, and
Because
so and so wants me to be more like this, and so I have to be like this. And I said, why? Why?
I grew up like that. Beautiful is somebody who has a white complexion, who's tiny, who's not chubby or whatever. The body type, the color of the skin, the type of hair. It's how beauty was created in my mind. Even the way how we cursed, when I came here the first time, I was so surprised that people cursed every time. The Philippines, they cannot even curse the F word. It's normal here. And in the Philippines, if you say that one word, the whole family is gonna gang up on you because you are so bad. Remember a funny thing. When I first wrote my short story on Wattpad, the characteristic of the female lead, it should be comedic at the same time. Her idea of love is based on books, happily ever after, that I'm gonna
Mhm.
meet this prince and blah blah blah. There are instances that I knew that character should have said the F word, but I controlled myself because I'm not that. I cannot make myself for it just gonna curse and say the F word because I feel, my God, it's so against how I'm raised. I think it reflected in the story that there are times I should have let her curse. I joined this writing contest at Wattpad and I entered that story. And it's so funny because I remember one of the judges' comment was, why did you control the character on her lines? You should have cursed on this chapter. You should have said the F word. Because instead of saying the F word, I say freaking. I said,
Mhm.
and then you should have not controlled the lines of your character. It should have been better if you really cursed, blah, blah, blah. Well, it shows how I was raised because it's only 5 years ago that I started accepting that cursing here is normal.
There's definitely that other side of it. I personally don't use the F word. I don't curse because for me it's not dignified. I completely understand. If you have gone for so long believing that it's not okay to say certain words, to do certain things, but then you come to a place where this is how we live. This is everybody does it.
I
You
realized,
really do feel kind of shelled in, and
yes,
there is that bit of liberation in actually being accepted and fitting into the new place that where everybody is doing it.
the character is American. My female character is that's why I was like, yeah, they were right. And it's so funny. I can say now that the way how my culture affected the way how I've written is in that perfect example. Sometimes if I'm gonna write a line for a character, should I make her cursed? And I still have to ask myself 3 times or more, should I make her cursed?
My kind of version of that is the way that I was raised. You don't do things that are violent. You don't talk about dark things. I like to talk about those subjects of abuse, of suicide, people suffering through pains of betrayal, especially, because those are realities that I've experienced in my life, but we had to keep them very quiet as a family because of the culture that we were living in. Being able to talk about that is, yes, I feel completely free. I feel connected with others, and sometimes it makes it hard to connect with others from the group that I was raised by. I can't say that I regret it as a writer because as an author, you know what your characters need, you know who they are, and you need to represent them and bring that out in the best way that you can. That is our job.
Yeah, and if you don't want your relatives to know that you wrote it, then just use a pen name.
Exactly. The glory of pen names.
Right, but then use a pen name so they wouldn't know that it was you who wrote it. Since I know that I don't have that kind of degree in writing, I just write what I want to write, and then that's why we have editors, to edit
Hmm.
my work. Like
Exactly.
why you have editor because why would you burden yourself knowing that you don't have that skill? That's why we have editors. But sometimes that's why you also have your free will if you would like to accept the editor's suggestion. It feels good that we have option as a writer. And at the end of the day, I just always tell myself, you just write what you want to write. And then if you think you want other people to read it, then that's the time you have to get an editor and edit your work.
Yes, absolutely. Beautiful words. Just in closing, if you could give one piece of advice to somebody who wants to start writing or wants to become a writer, what would you tell them?
Write. The first thing is to write because nothing can be edited or nothing can be read unless you write. The funny thing is, sometimes when we're starting, this happened to me. When I started writing, I started coming up with visualizations. Oh, I'm going to be a bestseller. I'm going to be, I think it's normal. But when you
Hmm.
started writing something, you wish for the highest dream. You always think that oh, this is going to be the book that everybody would want to read. And it's normal. Do not blame yourself if you think that way because it's an inspiration. What's inspire you to write more, to write your idea? We're living on dreams. We have to be in reality as well. If you need help, then get an editor. If you need help in researching, then ask for people who have done the same thing, researching for facts. If you think that you cannot write because you don't have the skill. Unless you write that first word, then you cannot really say that you are writing. I've written so many stories on Wattpad, and most of them are not edited. I'm not shy to admit. Most of them are not edited because I wrote it from my phone. I get the idea, I write. When you have the chance to get back to it, and then, oh my God, I'm so stupid writing this part. I should have written this one. The moment that it's there, it's so easy to just edit it and then write more ideas if you need to. But as the first time writer, the first thing that you have to do is to write. And never mind if you get so many errors, especially in grammar, because that's the best part of the first draft. The best first draft is you have the biggest excuse not to be perfect. And it's just the first draft is just a warm up. You just write whatever idea comes to mind. And then it's up to you for the second phase of writing if you want it to be edited professionally, if you want to rewrite or to edit it yourself. But always remember that you cannot be a writer or an author unless you start writing. And you always have option to get help for editing, for formatting. I don't even know how to format, I'm telling you. I have to pay someone to do the formatting of my book and even to edit it and even do the covers because I only have my initial covers taken from Canva, the one that I use on Wattpad. I'm not really that creative. I don't know how to draw. I always have this great idea. I'm creative in ideas. I can create in one sitting. This is very nice for a cover. Maybe that's why it was hard for the people that I pay to come up with a cover that I accepted. And even now with the first book that I published, I still have these ideas. I should have made it this way, or I should have added this, and I should have changed this. Who knows? Maybe someday I can come up with a new edition. I'm so thankful to everyone who bought the book, who keeps reading it on Wattpad, and I'm just so sad because I cannot put it on Kindle Unlimited right now. It's been 2 years that I've been on struggle with them. I am so lucky because I keep having people buy my book even up to this day. And there are days that I cannot believe where did these people come from. I don't know who they are, but I wanted to meet them, say thank you for each and every time that they buy a copy. And sometimes we get so afraid because we're new in writing that nobody will read what we wrote. But
Hmm.
my experience is that I don't know who those 2,000 plus people who purchased units of my book. And I did not even promote it. I only started promoting on Instagram like a year or two ago. Even now, I'm nobody on Instagram. But still, people keep buying my book. So if you really want to write, then keep writing. Write the first word, and one word will turn into 1,000 words. Before you know it, you're done with one.
Absolutely. Wonderful advice. Thank you, Mary Kay. Those are wonderful words. And I really do hope that our viewers will take that to heart because it does, it just starts with one word and it can take you anywhere.
Yeah.
So that is our podcast this week. Thank you so much, Mary, for joining us. For everybody viewing, you can check out her book in the description below as well as her Instagram handle. Please give her a follow. The book is, again, Before It's Too Late. It is on Amazon and I would highly recommend it. Subscribe to the channel so we can continue to support indie authors. And we will see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.